It is time that Canada realizes that they are on stolen land. And it's time that Canada gives it back.
So how much land and where would that land be when you say it should be given back?
All of this land.
So the whole country? The
whole country.
Well, I think again that's extremism, and it's. I think that, and for me, and as I mentioned, I was an activist before. I always, we're a minority, and because of that, we have to depend on support from the general public. And if I go around, saying we didn't sign any treaties in British Columbia, BC is Indian land, we want it all back. I'd be like, ooh. So I got a 25-year mortgage, and then suddenly, I'm going to lose my house. There's no way I'm going to give you my land to you. and I think there's no way I'm going to support that.
Today we're going to fight for the children. We're going to fight for the families. Whether it's here in BC or in Manitoba or Ontario or Alberta or Saskatchewan, we're going to fight for the families. We're going to walk for the families. And in some cases, we might have to die for the families. But this is our responsibility to make sure that this happens in a good way. And if it doesn't want to happen in a good way, well, then Canada's going to wake up.
It's been weeks since the first announcement was made about the locating of unmarked grave sites at residential schools. Since then, Canada has lowered its flags at mass. We've gone as far as, in some cities, to cancel the country's birthday. But are some people taking this discovery a bit too far? Recently, when I was reporting on the first location to announce the unmarked graves, which you can find the full report at rebelnews.com, we came across an activist. She had quite extreme, you could say, views about what the discovery of these unmarked graves should mean for Canada and what Canadians should do to make reparations. I'm going to show you what she had to say, and also when I spoke with a Hereditary chief to see if he agreed with such views. Before we get to this report, I want to make sure you're aware of something that urgently needs your attention. Across Western Canada, Catholic churches are suspiciously catching a fire, and it seems like anti-hate groups and politicians alike just simply don't care. But we do at Rebel News. That's why we're prepared to offer $10,000 to any tipster who gives us a tip at findthearsonist.com that leads to the arrest of the likely arsonists involved in destroying these places of worship. Again, head to findthearsonist.com and tell us what you know.
Canadians need to realize that this is stolen land. We never came into agreements to be stuck in poverty. That was never the deal. And every government has blood on their hands. Every government has blood on their hands. There has yet to be a government that is not clean. Every government has watched our children bathe in dirty water in their homes. Every Canadian government has watched First Nations live under boil advisory. Every government has watched and taken our governments to court for things that we should never have to go to court for, like housing, infrastructure. First Nation children and their equal rights to access to health care, to education. We should never have to do that. This is our homeland.
When I first got involved in Indian politics in the early 60s, Grassy Narrows was having a problem with its mercury poisoning. Today, they're still having a problem with the mercury poisoning. Nothing has been done. Nothing has been done. Very little has been done. Some other communities have issues with water unfit to drink. The government gives them a few $100,000 here. Years later, they come back and say, "Well, we hired some shady contractors, and they didn't do the work right." The government says, "Well, if we gave you the money, it's your fault." You know, I mean, like, what's going on here? You know, it's just ridiculous.
Do you think it's a lot of just corruption? And the reason why
Yes.
there hasn't been infrastructural change?
Exactly. Yeah. There's a lot of corruption. There's a lot of, you know, what's in it for me. You know, our leaders some of them have forgotten why they're there and who they're there for. It's always based on power and money and influence and status, you know. I mean, like, you know, why would we wear headdresses and go to, you know, public gatherings, have our pictures taken? You know, when I don't even, in my culture, a headdress wasn't worn by us. So.
Now, you mentioned that it's time for political agendas to end that do nothing. So what type of political agenda do you think we need to see happen now in Canada?
We need to see, it has to happen province to province. It has to happen in a way where the government has to give up things now. They have to give up some lands and just give them back to the First Nations. They have to let go of the control that they imposed upon First Nations. They have to create space in this country where First Nation people, Métis people, Inuit people will have a base of their own political platforms that are real, that'll work in a way that is equal to that of Canada. It is time that Canada realizes that they are on stolen land, and it's time that Canada gives it back.
So how much land and where would that land be when you say it should be given back?
All of this land.
So the whole country?
The whole country.
Colonialism or oppression becomes successful when the oppressed become the oppressors. And certainly that, to a degree, that happens on reserves when, after the introduction of the elective system, elected people in some cases become the oppressors because they have all this influx of federal government money, and they use it. At one time, they were told, you don't have to report this to your own constituency. You know, this is between you and I. You know, and that conspiracy is developed. You know, welfare in my day, just after I came out of office, became the big moneymaker on reserves. They were given tons of money. They were given a lot of money to administer it. So why would I want to get people off welfare if it meant my livelihood? And at one point, it was even used to control people. You know, if you don't do this, we're not going to get your monthly welfare check. And I'm talking about our own people doing this to their own people, you know.
So do you anticipate other Canadians to all be on board with that? And if not, what would that look like?
I'm not thinking about other Canadians. I'm thinking about children.
But what about the children who don't have Indigenous heritage?
I'm thinking about our own. This is our land. This is our home. Everybody's just a visitor. But yet somehow, some way, Canadian government policies of assimilation have put my people in a position where they've had less than, where they've always had less than. Those are the things that are going to stop. It's time.
Do you think there's any way we can move forward together? Like government together?
Those are idealistic thoughts. We've been talking like that for 150 years. They don't work anymore. This is our conversation now. The table is with us now. Because now we have something that they've been denying us of, saying that never happened. The Royal Commission on Aboriginal People, the government spent millions on that. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission, the government spent millions on that, with the hope that we would stay quiet.
I think that from our side, firstly, from the Indian side, we need to understand who the enemy is, and our common enemy is the federal government. That goes to the general public also. We're fed so many different misinformation about certain things, and it's pitting one group against the other. And if that doesn't work, then give them a bunch of money and let them fight over it. And we wash our hands of it, we, the federal government. And that's our common enemy, really.
And then what about people like myself? So I'm Black and Indigenous. So where do they fall?
Where do you think you fall? Who do you think owns this land?
In what you're saying the political agenda needs to be?
I'm not worried about you, I'm sorry.
So if I'm part Indigenous, you're not talking about me.
That's your business.
Okay.
I'm talking about our First Nation people. I'm talking about the original people of this land.
Right. So I was just asked, there's a lot of people like me where we're mixed, right? So we have First Nation heritage, but we also have, African descent and things like that.
We were here first.
Right. So it has to be the full bloodline of...
If that's where you want to go, then that's how you understand
I
it.
was just wondering what type of political agenda would help correct this.
Those are the kind of questions that political leaders, the Canadian government political leaders tend to ask because they don't want to address the real issues. The real issue is the Canadian government screwed over First Nation people. The Canadian government knew that children were being burned and put in graves in those schools. The Canadian government in the past 150 years, every one of them, I will say forever, have blood on their hands. So I don't apologize for anybody or anything, not anymore. There's no more niceness, no more diplomacy, no more nice words. That's done now. It's time for people to quit saying, well, I'm half, I'm 3/4, I'm this, I'm that. That's your business, I don't care. What I care about is First Nation people that have lost so much. Because it seems like 80% of Canadians all of a sudden have a little bit Native in them. That's not right.
Well, I think again that's extremism, and it's. I think that, and for me, and as I mentioned, I was an activist before. I always, we're a minority. And because of that, we have to depend on support from the general public. And if I go around, saying we didn't sign any treaties in British Columbia, BC is Indian land, we want it all back, I'd be like, ooh. So I got a 25-year mortgage, and suddenly, I'm going to lose my house. There's no way I'm going to give you my land to you. And I think there's no way I'm going to support that. I think we have to be realistic. We have to be pragmatic in this. We have to, because we're all going to have to live together. The settlers aren't going to pack up and move away. And so what are we going to do we won't be able to shop at Safeway.
So what do you think? Do you agree more with the chief or the activists that you saw in this report? And if you appreciate our boots on the ground reporting, you can help support our journalism by donating what you can at rebelfieldreports.com. Drea Humphrey for Rebel News. If you know absolutely anything about who may be behind destroying these places of worship, head to findthearsonist.com. There you'll find the full details of the $10,000 reward we are prepared to offer, and we assure you as well that your confidentiality is guaranteed.